During the break, the girl sitting next to me nudged me. "Hey, you got one of those? Can I borrow one?" From her awkward expression, I knew exactly what she meant. I was about to grab a pad for her when strange comments suddenly floated in front of my eyes. "Susan, whatever you do, don't give her one. The school bully is going to snatch that pad. Not only will Laura deny she asked you for it, but she'll also tell everyone you have blood on your pants. Because of this one pad in a month, you'll go insane and Laura will be dead." Even though the comments were desperately telling me to ignore Laura, I still calmly took out a pad and handed it to her. "It's an extra long. You'll be fine." Laura froze, staring at the pad I'd placed on her desk in plain sight. I knew what she was surprised about. Chris, the school bully, and his crew of guys were always making crude jokes about girls on their periods. Because of them, all the girls in our class were super secretive about pads. They'd hide them in their pockets or wrap them in black bags, passing them under their desks like spies. But here I was, just casually putting it right on the desk, as if it were a totally normal pack of tissues and not something shameful. "You don't like the long ones? I can get you a regular one instead." As I reached for a second one, just like the comments predicted, Chris snatched the pad off Laura's desk. He excitedly tore open the wrapper and jeered, "Laura, you using a pad this long? You bleeding like a river or something? No wonder your chest has gotten bigger lately." "Whoa, Chris. How would you know her chest has gotten bigger? Laura is Chris's childhood friend. How do you think he knows?" Haha. The guys in the class erupted in laughter. Laura squeezed her legs together and buried her head in her arms. That's not mine. It's Susan's. She just got her period. You can check her pants if you don't believe me." Yep. The comments were right about Laura's backstabbing too. A pang of sadness hit me. Laura and I had been desk mates since the 7th grade. In 9th grade, we promised we'd get into Northwood High together. I never thought she'd do this to me. "Laura, every girl gets her period. It's totally normal. Susan, can you please not drag me into this? I don't want to talk about that in public like you. It's so embarrassing." Before I could finish, Laura shoved her desk an inch away, deliberately drawing a line between us. I'm so mad. Does Laura have a conscience? Susan was trying to help her, and she throws her under the bus. Did the system glitch? Can't Susan see the comments? Why would she give Laura a pad? Susan, you're going to regret this. Chris is about to give you a nickname. Everyone's going to start calling you Period Girl. Period Girl? That's a pretty lame name. I looked away from Laura. When I looked up, Chris was dangling the unwrapped pad in front of my face with 2 fingers. Hey, Period Girl, stand up. Let everyone see how dirty your monkey butt is. Not as dirty as your mouth. I shot up from my seat, snatched the pad from his hand, and slapped it right across his mouth. Chris, since you're so curious about feminine products, here's a chance to get up close and personal. If this doesn't satisfy your curiosity, meet me by the girls' bathroom after school. I'll stuff a used one in your mouth. A used one. The classroom went dead silent. A vein throbbed on Chris's forehead. He threw the pad on the floor and kicked my desk over. Susan, are you crazy? You want me to beat the hell out of you? He was half a head taller than me, his bloodshot eyes glaring. The fresh bruise on his cheekbone and the scab on his arm were trophies from fights with guys off campus. Before, a look like that from Chris would have sent me scrambling with an apology. But today, a cold smile crept onto my face. Then, as everyone stared in shock, I unwrapped the second pad I was holding and smoothly slapped it onto his forehead. Remember, I'm not Period Girl. I'm your period mama. Am I seeing things? Did Susan just slap Chris with a pad again? Yes. Susan, you're officially insane. Next time a guy makes a period joke, I'm totally slapping him with a pad. Period mama. I'm dying. Susan, you're a legend. Don't celebrate too soon. Chris doesn't play nice. Don't forget Susan and Laura's final ending. The cheers in the comments quickly died down, replaced by a sense of dread. I saw what they were saying. In a month, Laura would be dead, and I'd be insane. Most of the students and teachers in our class, 10-3, would be affected by this, living under a shadow for the rest of their lives. And it all started with that one pad. The truth is, I used to hate my period just as much as Laura did. I hated how it embarrassed me. My first period, In the second semester of 6th grade, I thought I had a terminal illness. In middle school, the cramps would make me tremble. If it happened on a day we had PE, it was hell on earth, but I was always too embarrassed to ask to be excused. By high school, I could mostly handle the pain, but stress made my cycle irregular. I'd gotten it suddenly in the middle of class, during an exam, and had accidents where it leaked through. I'd been through it all. On top of that, the guys in our class, led by Chris, loved to pick on girls who were on their period. They'd pinch their noses and say we smelled weird, or call any girl who leaked a monkey butt. Getting my period was always a nightmare. I had to be constantly on edge, so careful, like getting my period was some crime I had to hide. Terrified Chris would notice something was off. Unlike the other clueless guys, Chris seemed to have made a special study of periods. He could spot a girl with cramps from a mile away, and could tell who was about to get their period just by looking at certain parts of their bodies. If a girl's period was late, he'd start rumors. Hasn't had her period in a month. Must be pregnant. In reality, when a girl's hormones are out of whack, she can miss her period for 2 months. But Chris didn't care about that. It was like he had a vendetta against every girl in the class, determined to nail us to this cross of shame called menstruation, torturing us over and over to satisfy his sick sense of humor. But what was wrong with getting your period? It's just a normal biological function. What was wrong with us? We were just regular high school girls. We all knew what Chris was doing was wrong. But as freshmen, girls are sensitive and shy, and we were starting to get outmatched by the boys in height and strength. Most of us chose to suffer in silence. A few who couldn't take it anymore told their parents or our homeroom teacher. But our homeroom teacher, Mr. Young, was a stubborn old guy who only cared about grades. He talked to Chris a few times, but nothing ever came of it. Calling his parents was useless, too. Chris's dad was even more unreasonable than he was. I heard his dad once told Mr. Young to his face that periods were dirty, unlucky, and disgusting. He even went off on a parent in the class group chat for asking for a day off for their daughter, who was on her period. There are so many male parents and teachers in this group. You could have just said your daughter wasn't feeling well. Did you have to announce her cycle to everyone? With no one in charge, and the girls too ashamed to fight back, Chris got more and more brazen. Last month, he made me cry several times. Back then, Laura actually comforted me, telling me she'd known Chris since they were kids, and that he wasn't really that bad. He saved a kid from drowning once. He even got an award from the city for it. But does saving someone once mean you can never turn into a bad person? She only said that because she wasn't the one getting hit. It didn't hurt her. I wonder if Laura still thinks Chris is a good guy now, after he publicly shamed her for bleeding like a river. Whatever the case, I was done putting up with it. I raised an eyebrow at Chris. He'd been slapped with a pad twice in 1 minute, and was seeing red. But I was certain he wouldn't hit me. After all, he once wrote in an essay that any man who hits a woman is scum. Sure enough, Chris stared at me for a long moment, then his eyes suddenly curved into crescent moons. "Susan, I'll walk you home after school." Okay. The word flew out of my mouth without a tenth of a second of hesitation. Now it was Chris's turn to be stunned. The pop-up comments were just as baffled. Did Susan just agree, just like that? Can't she tell Chris is trying to provoke her? Susan's mental state. Does she seem a little unhinged? Honey, be bold. Let's drop the seem a little. She's totally unhinged. I frowned. I couldn't let the comments figure out I was a lunatic. To be safe, I should probably just lie low and stick to the script for now. Just then our homeroom teacher, Mr. Young, burst into the classroom. He looked like he'd been running, sweat beading on his forehead. "Chris, are you bullying a female classmate again? Come with me to my office." "Teacher, I wasn't. I was just turning down a confession." Mr. Young glanced at me, then at the pad on the floor. Ignoring Chris's explanation, he grabbed his arm and dragged him out of the room. "Let's go. I'm going to give you a personal lesson on health class." After Chris was hauled away, the whole class was dumbfounded. Health class? Did Mr. Young take the wrong medicine today? Yeah, he never used to get involved in this stuff. Why did he look so serious just now? "Susan, did you tip Mr. Young off? You actually set Chris up." I ignored Chris's lackeys and grabbed a fresh pad, handing it to a very busy-looking Laura. "Go change." Class is about to start. Laura stiffened her neck, refusing my offer, and turned to borrow one from the class president, Linda. I watched as Linda carefully tucked the pad inside a textbook and passed it to Laura. As soon as Laura got it, she hid it up her uniform sleeve and scurried out of the classroom like a thief. Linda knew I was watching them. After a moment's hesitation, she came over to help me pick up my things. She whispered a warning, "Susan, Chris knows some shady people outside of school. You should leave early today." That afternoon, I deliberately took a different route home, but Chris still cornered me at the mouth of an alley. His smile was full of contempt. "Period, girl. You said you'd let me walk you home. What, are you scared now?" "I said I'd let you walk me home. I didn't say I'd walk with you. Get out of my way. You sure you want to be this cocky, period, girl? We're off school grounds now. Mr. Young can't save you." As he spoke, he grabbed the collar of my uniform, pulling me towards him. His lips brushed against my ear, his voice a seductive whisper. "Susan, be my girlfriend, and we'll call it even for today. Susan, don't say yes. He's doing this on purpose. He knows Laura likes him, and he wants to see you two fight. Susan, don't trust Chris. He's just trying to get back at you. Susan, someone's recording this. If you agree to date him, the whole school will know." Recording? Looks like Chris was desperate to save face. Well, I might as well help him out. I tilted my head up, bringing my chin close to his. "Chris, the truth is, you're the one who likes me, right? When a guy constantly picks on a girl, it usually means he's trying to get her attention. So if you like me, you should just say so." A summer breeze brushed against my face. My bright eyes and warm breath made Chris blush without him even realizing it. He clearly didn't expect me to turn the tables. He shot an awkward glance into the shadows, muttering curses. "I was just messing with you. You actually took it seriously? Fine. If you won't be my girlfriend, you can be my enemy. Susan, I swear on my life, if you don't drop out within a month, I'll change my name." I looked at him like he was an idiot. He had no idea. The Susan standing in front of him now was a madwoman. I was completely unfazed by Chris's threat, but the pop-up comments were collectively freaking out. Ugh, here we go again. Susan still can't escape being forced to drop out within a month. Isn't it her own fault? We told her not to give the pad to Laura, but she just had to be a saint. "Susan, tonight Laura is going to report everything you did to Chris. Your life at school is about to get very difficult." Seriously, does Chris have some kind of hold over Laura? She does whatever he says, even betraying her best friend. They seemed convinced that I couldn't change the outcome. After all, by tomorrow morning, a scandalous post about me would be trending on the school's social media page. It was a secret I had hidden for a long time, a secret only Laura knew. So that night, I beat Chris to the punch and posted it myself, under my own name. I can't accept that my mom is the other woman. What should I do? I included pictures and text, describing my tragic childhood, my suffocating family life, and even posted my depression diagnosis. Laura had been with me when I went to get that diagnosis. I don't get what Susan is doing here. Beat the enemy at their own game. It's a risky move, but I have a weird feeling she might actually win. It's only the beginning. So many others have failed. The comments suddenly turned into gibberish. It seemed there was some secret about this world I wasn't allowed to know. I didn't dwell on it. Wiping away my tears, I kept typing. "Chris, isn't my life miserable enough? You're going to force me to drop out just because I lent a classmate a pad? Though I don't know what a sanitary pad ever did to you to make you hate it so much. I am willing to apologize on its behalf. I hope you can find it in your heart to let it go, and let me go too." Tonight was destined to be an eventful night. Less than a minute after I posted, the class president, Linda, was the first to reply. "Susan, what adults do has nothing to do with you. You don't need to carry your mother's mistakes, and you don't need to apologize to anyone. Class 10-3 will always be your home." With the class president leading the way, the other girls in our class started commenting in support of me. While they didn't dare to name Chris directly, their actions spoke volumes. Only Laura said nothing. The next day, I hung a small pink tag on my backpack that said, "You can always borrow a pad from me," and went to school as usual. Chris, furious that his plan had been ruined, blocked my way at the school gate. Daughter of a mistress. No wonder you'd hang something like that on your bag. You're as shameless as your mother. I rolled my eyes and tried to walk around him, but he grabbed my backpack and yanked me backward. I deliberately struggled, then spun around and crashed into him, making sure the security cameras caught enough of the action before I slipped my backpack off. The comments started scrolling like crazy. Susan, don't hit Chris with your backpack. If you hit him, he'll claim your depression is making you violent and get parents to complain about you. Susan, run inside the school. Now. The well-meaning warnings in the comments made it clear what was coming next. But should I really run? Even if I got away this time, what about the next? Chris wouldn't give up on using these cheap tricks to force me out of school. I had to shut this down for good and turn the tables on him. I swung my backpack and slammed it into Chris's head, squeezing out fake tears as I did. Chris, why did you touch my chest? After shouting, I ran straight into the school to find the principal. Chris tried to chase me, but a heroic janitor conveniently appeared and splashed a bucket of dirty water on him, then started whacking him with her broom. By the time I finished my tearful story to the principal, a sopping wet Chris was being escorted into the office by the dean of students. Susan, you're a fing psycho. Wah. I didn't say a word. I just dredged up every sad memory I had and thought about them all at once. I cried so hard I could barely breathe, looking as pathetic as possible. Chris knew I was faking it and looked like he wanted to kill me right there, but the principal just yelled at him. Chris, stand up straight and apologize to Susan. Chris just sneered, completely ignoring him. I wiped my tears and, right in front of Chris, handed the principal the video from yesterday of him asking me to be his girlfriend. The person who secretly recorded it had sent it to me after my post went viral. Combined with the security footage of him grabbing me at the gate, the principal was now completely convinced of my story. Soon, Chris's dad arrived at the school. The principal demanded he guarantee that Chris would never approach or harass me again. Sir, if a similar incident occurs, the school will report it to the police. Chris's dad barely glanced at the videos. Without asking a single question, he slapped Chris across the face right in front of me and the principal. You're a disgrace. If I catch you messing with girls again, I'll beat you to death. The slap split Chris's lip, but he didn't even flinch. He had been staring at the floor ever since his dad showed up. His unfocused eyes seemed to well up with tears, but the corner of his bloody mouth twitched into a sick smile. This guy was 100% already plotting his revenge. The comments, which had apparently never seen Chris so utterly defeated, were completely in awe of my masterful performance. Susan is so nuts, I love it. Is she really only 16? The way she ran into the principal's office to tattle was so smooth, like she'd practiced it hundreds of times. How can a 16-year-old girl be this cool? So, Susan has solved her dropout crisis. But if Laura still ends up dead, you'll still go insane, you know. The comments were right. If Laura really couldn't escape her fate, my depression would definitely spiral again. Because to me, she wasn't just my desk mate and friend. She was the light that had guided me out of the darkness. When my mom kicked me out and forced me to go find my dad, she was the one who took me in, ignoring her own parents' scolding, and let me share her bed. When my mom was having an episode and refused to give me money for class fees, she was the one who smashed her piggy bank and counted out every single coin for me. In 8th grade, she found me wearing a mask and collecting plastic bottles and cardboard at the gym. She didn't look down on me. She came and helped me collect trash 2 days a week, because the other 5 days she had to do laundry and cook for her little brother. By high school, I had passed the interview for the Cho Scholarship Fund and no longer had to worry about living expenses. But I would never forget that Laura had collected bottles with me for 209 days, rain or shine. And every New Year's Eve, she would come to my house and stuff a little red envelope into my hand. Susan, remember to put this under your pillow for good luck. Because of her, I slowly started to feel human again. I survived that dark, sunless period of my life. I lived. The principal kept me for a while to comfort me. By the time I got back to class 10-3, Laura had already moved her desk next to Chris's, becoming his new desk mate. The boys were teasingly calling her Mrs. Chris. She shyly punched Chris's arm. Chris, tell them to stop. But she couldn't hide the smile in her eyes. In that instant, I lost it. Laura, why are you sitting with Chris? Don't you know what kind of person he is? Susan, I know exactly who he is. And I told the homeroom teacher yesterday that I was switching seats. Laura, snap out of it. Even if he's your childhood friend, he still mocked you and humiliated you without a second thought. Have you forgotten? He said you were bleeding like a... Before I could finish, Laura irritably put on her headphones. Seeing her so lovesick made my anger boil over. I yanked her headphones off and pulled her out of her chair. Laura stood up and angrily shook my hand off. Susan, we may be friends, but you need to respect my decisions. Respect? I can't respect your decision to eat garbage. I looked her straight in the eye. Why do you turn into a different person whenever Chris is around? Laura froze, not answering. She looked down and quickly walked out of the classroom. I wanted to chase after her, but then I saw Chris, watching me with a look of amusement, his chin resting on his hand. From the malicious glint in his eyes, I knew. From my irrational outburst, he had figured out exactly what I cared about most. The next day, Chris's new target was Laura. He snapped her bra strap, laughing about her body. He publicly imitated the tone of Laura's grandmother, who favored boys over girls, calling Laura a waste of money in a high-pitched voice. He even told the absurd story of how Laura's father had dragged her to the next village for an arranged meeting with a potential suitor, recounting it like it was the funniest joke in the world. After he was done, Chris looked at me provocatively. Susan, you and Laura are so close. Didn't you know about all this? I really didn't know. In my friendship with Laura, she was always the one absorbing my negativity while I soaked up her sunshine. I only ever saw her as a warm little sun, never realizing that the other side of the sun could be an iceberg. But I didn't understand. Why would she tell Chris these things she had never told me? A born rotten person like Chris would only use her trust to stab her in the heart. That afternoon, Laura cried the whole time, but I didn't do anything. The comments could only fret and curse Chris. Even as a guy, I can't watch this. Using a girl's crush on him to constantly put her down and make fun of her. Chris, you're a real piece of work. Chris, can you act like a decent human being for once? We're all 16. How did you get so messed up? Susan, get it together. Think of something quick. A plan. I actually had one already. I just needed to confirm one more thing. I went to school every day as usual, the pink "you can always borrow a pad from me" tag still on my backpack. Walking through the hallways, I'd always catch people looking at me. During that time, 2 girls actually did ask me for a pad. Another girl didn't ask for one, but she secretly slipped me 20. She pointed at my tag, smiling shyly. Susan, I'm too embarrassed to wear one of these, but I really want to support you. What made me happiest, though, was that the girls in our class were becoming more united. Whenever a boy made fun of a girl, other girls would jump in to defend her. Honestly, when it comes to a real shouting match, boys are no match for girls. After Linda led the charge and won a couple of arguments, the classroom dynamic shifted from the boys completely dominating the girls to a balanced stalemate. Seeing their status plummet, Chris took Laura to the equipment room after school one day. He deliberately had someone come and tell me, Susan, you know what can happen in an equipment room. Chris said if you want him to let Laura go, you have to drop out of school. Can Chris just spontaneously combust already? Susan, go get a teacher to save Laura. Quick. What's a teacher going to do? What if they open the door and the scene is traumatizing? What would happen to Laura then? I can't with Laura. Chris tells her to go to the equipment room, and she just goes? With that lovesick brain of hers, how is Susan supposed to change her ending? The comments were full of sighs and despair, clearly unable to come up with a good solution. But a light bulb went off in my head. I took off running, all the way to the senior building, to class 12-9, to find the upperclassman who had borrowed a pad from me. She was 5 feet 11 inches, over 200 pounds, a student athlete, and the city's shot put champion. I need your help, I said. I quickly explained the situation, and being a stand-up person, she came with me to the equipment room. It had been half an hour since school let out, and the campus was mostly empty. The senior let out a roar, and with one punch, she smashed a hole through the flimsy wooden door. Then she started kicking the splintered wood, and in a few seconds, the door was wide open. But to my surprise, Laura was the only one inside. She was clutching an unsent love letter in her hand. Was she locked in here willingly? I didn't have time to think. I went inside to check on her. Laura, are you okay? Leave me alone. Laura's voice was choked with sobs. She covered her face, pushed past me and the senior, and ran off. The story of me and the senior breaking down the door to rescue someone spread quietly among the girls at school. Girls from the track and basketball teams started coming to our class to borrow pads from me. They publicly warned Chris that if he ever bullied a girl in our class again, he'd be bullying them too. Chris was humiliated. After that, whenever an upperclassman came looking for him, he'd just slump over his desk and pretend to be asleep. The comments rained down confetti. See, Chris dares to bully one girl, but when he's up against a group, he has to think twice. Now that he's facing someone stronger, he won't even lift his head. When girls stick together, what can the boys even do? Girls help girls. Susan's got some serious backup now. The whole school's got her back. For the next couple of days, thanks to the support from the upperclassmen, the girls in our class were talking twice as loud as usual. Even Hannah, the smallest girl who would cry if a boy so much as teased her, told me in private, Susan, I'm not scared of Chris and his friends anymore. But through all this victory, Laura remained firmly on Chris's side. She was even planning to follow his orders and frame me. The comments saw it coming. Susan, Linda is out sick today. If Mr. Young asks you to collect the class funds, whatever you do, don't agree. Chris is going to order Laura to steal the money, and that will be the final straw that breaks you. Chris is betting that you'd rather take the blame for losing the money than point the finger at Laura in front of the teachers and students. So he wanted to see Laura and me turn on each other. Huh? His plan was so obvious it was practically slapping me in the face. But this time, once again, I didn't do what the comments said. I confidently accepted the task of collecting the class funds. Running wasn't an option. If he wanted a fight, he'd get one. Sure enough, as soon as I finished collecting the money, Laura moved her desk back next to mine. Susan, I want to be your desk mate again. Okay, welcome back. I smiled at her warmly, pretending I knew nothing. During the lunch break, while she thought I was asleep, she reached into my desk drawer to take the money. I slammed my hand down on hers. It was cold and trembling. I put a finger to my lips. Don't worry. If you don't want everyone to know you're a thief, come with me. Laura's face went white. She stood up, terrified. I led her to the rooftop. When I turned around, she had already broken down, tears streaming down her face. Susan, She struggled for a long time, but could never bring herself to say the words I'm sorry. But I hadn't brought her up here to hear an apology. I was here to expose her. Laura, I know your secret with Chris. A few days ago, someone in the comments had asked, did Chris save Laura's life or something? That reminded me of what Laura had said about Chris getting a city award. I found the news article from 5 years ago. An 11-year-old Chris had saved a 3-year-old boy from drowning. That boy happened to be Laura's little brother. But my gut told me it wasn't just gratitude that made Laura so obedient to Chris. So I deliberately let Chris see how much I cared about Laura. I knew he would go after her to get back at me. And from Laura's reaction, my suspicion was confirmed. Chris had something on her. Something big. Susan, don't talk nonsense. I don't have any secrets. No. Then what about what happened 5 years ago, with your brother falling in the water? It was an accident. He slipped and fell into the pond. Chris saw it happen. It had nothing to do with me. When Laura lied, she would unconsciously stare at her shoes. Her stammering explanation was a dead giveaway. So I decided to bluff. Laura, I already know everything about what happened 5 years ago. You were the one who pushed your brother into the pond. Susan, I didn't mean to. He was trying to snatch my lollipop. I was so angry. He already had a whole box, and I only had this one. I just wanted to push him away. I didn't know he'd fall in the pond. I didn't want to kill him, just as I suspected. 5 years ago, Chris had seen Laura push her brother into the pond. He played the hero, saved her brother, and promised to keep her secret. That's why Laura subconsciously trusted and worshipped him. Even when Chris told her to do bad things, she didn't dare refuse. She was terrified of her secret getting out, terrified of being seen as a murderer. But now, That secret was no longer just between the two of them, which meant one of them had broken their promise. Laura, aren't you curious how I found out? Chris told me. I think he's told other people too. Does Susan even need to think before she lies? Susan is a genius. She managed to guess Laura and Chris's secret, and then used it to drive a wedge between them. I have to bow down to her. Look at Laura's reaction. She totally bought Susan's story. A 16-year-old girl is naive. And since I had been Laura's close friend for years, it was normal for her not to doubt me. She cried and apologized, repeating I'm sorry over and over. Just like she used to comfort me, I gently patted her on the shoulder and told her it was okay. The truth is, I could never be truly angry with her. In the previous ending, the reason Laura killed herself wasn't because of anything else. It was because she found out that after I was forced to drop out, my depression relapsed and I was institutionalized. Overcome with guilt, she confronted Chris on the rooftop. In the end, Chris came down alone. Her life was forever frozen at 16. Chris said Laura's last words were, "Please tell Susan I'm sorry." She must have been filled with so much regret for hurting her best friend that she did something so foolish. But this time, I wasn't insane and she wasn't dead. As long as we both stopped being afraid of Chris, maybe everything would be okay. Laura cried for a long time, and I stayed with her. You were only 11 5 years ago. Your family favors your brother, so it's normal that you'd be angry with him. I believe you didn't really want to kill him. It wasn't your fault. If your brother hadn't tried to take your lollipop, you wouldn't have pushed him. Laura, you don't have to blame yourself. Your brother is fine now. Just let it go. Don't be afraid. I'll be right there with you, protecting the 11-year-old Laura. I don't know how much time passed, but Laura finally made up her mind. Susan, I won't let Chris control me anymore. She confessed that Chris had promised her that if she made me look bad with the class funds this one time, he would stop trying to get me expelled. She had believed him and stupidly tried to steal the money. Susan, will you still be my friend? Of course. We pinky promised to be friends for life, remember? Watching Laura and me walk back to the classroom arm in arm, the comments exploded again. This is so heartwarming. Laura and Susan were supposed to be best friends from the start. A teenager would definitely think murder is a huge deal, which explains why Laura was so obedient to Chris before. It all makes sense now. Sob. I can't believe I'm seeing Susan forgive Laura in my lifetime. Does this mean Laura doesn't have to die? Yes. Of course Laura doesn't have to die. Between Chris, Laura, and me, the one who truly deserves to be punished is Chris. I arranged to meet Chris at the track after school. Chris must have thought I wanted to call a truce. He actually put gel in his hair and was trying to look cool for me. Chris, that day you asked Laura to meet you in the equipment room. Why didn't you show up? I just didn't feel like it. Does there have to be a reason? Chris glanced at me. Susan, don't tell me you're jealous. Yeah, I'm jealous. Oh really? Under the setting sun, Chris's face was as red as an apple. Chris, if you can catch me, I'll tell you. I gave him a sly smile and started running along the track. Chris caught up to me easily, but I always managed to cheat and slip away. The fifth time, as I veered to the right, he couldn't help but reach out and grab my hand. Susan, what kind of game are you playing now? I stopped, slowly catching my breath, and stared at the hand gripping my wrist, a triumphant smirk on my face. Chris, is bullying girls fun? Does making fun of girls make you feel important? Well, today you're going to get a taste of what it feels like to be humiliated in public. Chris frowned. Susan, where do you get this confidence? From your dad. I pointed to Chris's father, who was walking towards the track with Laura. Chris, have you forgotten? Your dad said he'd kill you if he ever caught you messing with a girl again. Chris realized he'd fallen into my trap, but he stubbornly refused to let go. Susan, you really are crazy. Thanks for the compliment. With that, I yanked my hand free and ran towards Laura and Chris's dad, my eyes welling up with tears. Sir Chris, he tried to assault me again. That afternoon, Chris got beaten badly by his dad. His father was a ruthless man. As usual, he didn't ask Chris any questions, he just started hitting him. At first, it was punches and kicks. Then, when that wasn't enough, he took off his belt in front of the whole school and whipped Chris until his skin broke and bled. Chris seemed terrified of his dad. He didn't dodge or run, just stood there like a statue, letting his father beat and curse him. Students walking by stared at them. I heard his father yelling at Chris, "You useless piece of crap. All you think about is women instead of studying. You're just like your mother, a total bitch. Only a bitch like her could give birth to a bastard like you. Chris, you listen to me. If you cause any more trouble, I'll stop paying for your sister's medicine. That old bastard. The things he's saying are horrible. Like father, like son. Now I get why Chris is so messed up. Ugh, I know Chris deserves it, but seeing his arms all bloody is making me feel sick." Eventually, Mr. Yang and a security guard managed to drag Chris's father away. Chris walked away alone. I watched his back, and suddenly I felt like there was no life in him at all. As if he wouldn't have cared if his dad had just beaten him to death right there. I spent 3 days investigating Chris, and what I found left me speechless. Chris's parents divorced when he was very young. His younger sister was in a vegetative state and had been in the hospital for a year. His family life was no better than mine. After gym class, I stayed behind to help Chris put away the basketballs. "Chris, the reason you hate periods so much, it's because of your sister, isn't it?" Chris, who hadn't made a sound even when his father was whipping him in public, flinched. His whole expression changed. He instinctively turned to run away from the topic. I chased after him and blocked his path. "A year ago, your sister was in 5th grade. The day she got her first period, she jumped from the balcony. She's been in a coma ever since, still lying in a hospital bed. And the reason she jumped was because of a joke you made. You told her she had a terminal illness and that your dad would kill her." In the police report, Chris admitted that on that morning, when his sister told him in a panic that there was a lot of blood on her pajama pants, he had glanced at it and casually scared her, telling her she had a terminal disease, the same one their mom died from. He never thought she would actually believe him. It was her own fault for being so stupid. She's a girl. Didn't she know what a period was? Chris, have you ever considered that for an 11-year-old girl from the countryside, whose mother had left, there was no one to teach her what a period was? Chris covered his ears, his eyes bloodshot. The more he tried to avoid the subject, the more I picked at the wound. "Chris, you made that kind of joke with your sister because of your dad's influence, right? His father was a businessman who loved to play mahjong and believed that periods and menstrual blood were bad for his luck. Whenever his mom was on her period, his dad would call her a jinx and a money loser. If anything went wrong during that time, he'd take it out on her with his fists. The last time, just because his mom accidentally got some blood on the bed sheets, his dad smashed a vase over her head. They ended up at the police station. Though no charges were filed, a report was made. From that day on, Chris's mom insisted on a divorce, leaving her 2 children behind and never coming back. After his mom left, his dad either gave him money or beat him. To make sure he had food to eat, Chris didn't dare fight back or try to find his mother. He just did what his dad said and told his sister their mom was dead. The records I found showed that Chris's dad had wanted to give up on his sister. Chris went on a hunger strike and ended up in the hospital, which was the only reason his dad agreed to pay for her treatment. After that, his dad always used it as a threat. If Chris dared to disobey, he'd cut off his sister's medical funds. Chris was powerless. He had no choice but to be his dad's punching bag and servant, his beatings and meals depending entirely on his father's mood. No wonder Chris always had bruises and cuts. They weren't trophies from glorious fights, they were from his dad. His miserable life had nearly driven him to despair. But a problem as complex as a toxic family wasn't something a 16-year-old boy could easily solve. Chris was like someone trapped in a dead-end alley, growing more and more distorted. He projected all his hatred onto menstruation, blaming it for the loss of his mother and sister. Or maybe deep down he was terrified of the very words period, a shadow that had loomed over him from childhood through his teenage years. Unable to dispel it, he could only use insults and degradation to mask his inner fear. But in the end he didn't win. He just turned himself into a complete and utter monster. I can't take this anymore. Someone give me Chris's dad's phone number. If you can't be responsible for your kids, please don't have them. Why do I feel so sorry for Chris right now? I don't even know if I'm supposed to hate him anymore. Ugh, they're all just sad kids. So this is what happens. Kids from unhappy homes are really prone to problems during puberty. Like Chris, he wasn't inherently evil, but look what he turned into. Just like the comments said, I also felt that Chris's situation was tragic. But driven by logic, I still decided to encourage him to die. Chris, you're a real piece of trash. Your sister, me, Laura, and everyone in class 10-3. Our lives are miserable because you exist. Do you want to hear about our tragic endings? Is Susan insane? Susan has completely manipulated Chris. He thinks everything is his fault now. Susan is seriously crazy. She wants to kill Chris. I get Susan's logic. Chris is the root cause of the tragedy. If he dies, Susan and Laura will be safe for good. I remember before, but even if Chris dies, Laura's ending won't change. The comments glitched into gibberish again. But no matter what had happened before, I was sticking to my decision. I was 100% sure I would win in the end. The day of the finale arrived. The class president, who was on lookout, told me that Chris had apologized to all the girls in the class and then disappeared. I know where he is. Don't worry, everything is under control, I texted her back. As I was texting, Chris was heading to the rooftop, with Laura following close behind. I could hear Laura crying, begging him not to do something stupid, telling him that if he felt sorry, he should make up for it with his actions, not escape through death. But Chris was completely convinced by my words. He was terrified that his existence would lead his sister and everyone in class 10-3 to the horrible fate I had described. He was fixated on the idea that only his death could end it all. Laura, I didn't see Susan. Make sure you tell her I'm sorry for me. Chris gripped the railing. His white sneakers were perched on the edge of the roof. The hot wind blew away the tears at the corners of his eyes. Ignoring Laura's pleas, he stubbornly climbed over the railing, faced the bright sun, and slowly closed his eyes. Oh my God, is Chris for real? Is Susan really just going to stand there and watch him die? Why is Laura so close to the railing too? This is killing me. I wish I could jump into the and pull them all back. Chris, don't. Laura frantically tried to climb over the railing. As Chris turned to look at her, the three of us, me, Mark, and Leo, rushed out from behind an electrical box, grabbed him, and pulled him back to safety. Phew. That was close. Now everyone was safe. Chris was gasping for air, staring at me in confusion. Susan, didn't you want me to die? I did. But didn't you just die a minute ago? Chris didn't understand what I meant at first. He looked at his two cronies, Mark and Leo, with a look of pure innocent stupidity. But the comments got it. Checkmate. Susan means that the moment Chris decided to jump, he had already killed his former self. Only when the cruel, foolish Chris dies can the tragedy be averted. So Susan didn't want him to literally die. She wanted him to make a clean break with his past. If Chris never realized his own problems, or was never determined to change, similar things would just happen again. They're only freshmen. Who knows what could happen in sophomore or junior year? Flawless victory. The ending is secure. I have a question. Why are Mark and Leo listening to Susan? Fortune favors the bold. Diagnosis. Susan is certifiably insane. So it's not that Susan can't see the comments. It's that she doesn't need them. Unlike the excited comments, Chris was still wallowing in self-blame. I showed him a video I'd asked a nurse to take. In it, a girl was sleeping peacefully. It was Chris's sister. Chris, what if I told you that if you keep living, you might have a chance to save your sister? Would you be willing to try? Chris froze in disbelief. The school bully Chris died 3 minutes ago. The one who survived is a future great scientist. A scientist? That's right. A scientist. I handed Chris a piece of paper. On it were 2 words, Redemption Game. Chris's eyes lit up. This was a game he had started conceptualizing when he was 15. He had always wanted to go back to the moment his sister got her first period and change her fate. He had never told anyone about this strange idea, but now somehow I knew. Chris sat on the ground in a daze, almost unable to breathe. Susan, right now, are we inside? Yes. I held out my hand to Chris. As I pulled him up, I whispered, this is my 1001st time clearing this level. A system announcement appeared in the comments. Global first clear player for Redemption Game Class 10-3. Susan, age 60. Age 60, also named Susan. Is she the main character herself? No wonder she could beat it. But I heard she's been living in a mental hospital. Can psychiatric patients play the redemption game? Of course. People with mental illness want to save themselves, their friends, and their classmates more than anyone. I'm so jealous. A $1.6 billion prize. $1.6 billion? There was that much prize money? Unfortunately, I wouldn't be getting any of it. Because after clearing the redemption game, the past would be changed. Our Class 10-3 would no longer need redemption. The game's creator, Chris, would focus his energy on developing other redemption games. So the game Class 10-3 would never exist in the future, which meant there would be no prize money to collect. Oh well. Changing the outcome was enough for me. The ending from 44 years ago had been a weight on my heart for my entire life. At 16, because I lent a pad to my desk mate, I angered Chris and was forced to drop out of school. After dropping out, my depression spiraled. I stopped eating and drinking, my body went stiff, and my family had me forcibly institutionalized. Being locked in a mental hospital was painful enough, but then on the TV in my room, I saw the news that Laura had jumped off a building. Impossible. How could Laura have jumped? I laughed and cried, descending further into madness. I don't know when, but I developed a split personality. Linda came to visit me on behalf of the class, but she seemed even more depressed than I was. Mr. Young was in a car accident. He lost his leg. Students are transferring out or getting sick. Hannah cries every day. Our class has completely fallen apart. Susan, I'm so sorry. As class president, if I had been braver, if I had organized the girls to speak up for you when that post first came out, maybe you never would have dropped out, and Laura never would have jumped. But there are no what-ifs in this world. Susan, what do? I feel like I'm stuck on the day Laura died. I can't move on. I stared at Linda, confused. Linda, wasn't it Susan who died? I'm Laura. At 18, my condition had stabilized a lot. I spent 16 hours a day believing I was Laura. Around that time, Chris, who had gotten into MIT, came to visit me. He said he would spend his entire life developing a redemption game to save both me and Laura. Save us? Chris, what's a redemption game? It means we can use time particles to go back to a specific point in the past, correct our mistakes, and save the people we care about. A point in time? You mean the day I asked Susan for a pad, right? Chris knew I was having an episode but didn't correct me. Yes, that day. Susan, I'll get the game made as soon as I can. You have to hold on. After he left, I started replaying that moment over and over, reconstructing the scene in my mind. One personality played me. The other personality played Laura. We both wanted so desperately to save each other. I waited and waited. 29 years later, when I could recite every detail of that summer when I was 16, Chris, with the help of a mysterious benefactor, finally succeeded in creating the redemption game. On the surface, the redemption game was a full immersion game, but it was actually a gateway to a small world in the past. If someone could beat the game, they could change our ending. To prevent any history-altering events, the game had strict limitations. For example, each player only had one chance to choose a character. Once they entered the game, they would automatically merge with that character, forgetting everything about the real world. When they left the game, their character memories would be erased. So if a player chose the character Susan, regardless of their real age, gender, or profession, they would believe they were Susan inside the game. Although players could see the pop-up comments and get hints about the plot, any words or phrases that could awaken their real-world memories would appear as gibberish. Without being able to retain your real consciousness, beating the game was extremely difficult. The game was essentially a series of our past selves, relying on comment hints to try and save ourselves and our classmates, over and over again. Could our 16-year-old selves really do it? I begged Chris to let me try too. Okay, but you have to wait your turn. I'm going first. Chris was the first player of the redemption game Class 10-3. He chose to play as himself. Even with the comment hints, the game's restrictions meant his personality was still that of his 16-year-old self, paranoid, dark, and unable to control his hatred of periods, constantly bullying girls. The comments couldn't stand seeing him bully girls and cursed him out. Eventually, he just stopped reading them. It wasn't until the plot reached the point where I dropped out and was institutionalized that Chris realized the comments were telling the truth. So when Laura dragged him to the rooftop, he wanted to end his own life. But in the end, Laura fell from the roof while trying to save him. Game over. Chris didn't get another chance to choose a character. After watching the recording of his playthrough, I realized that entering the game without a guaranteed win was just a waste of an opportunity, so I quietly gave up the idea. So Chris invited our other classmates and teachers from class 10-3 to try the game. It was only then that I learned how badly everyone was doing. The shadow of that year had loomed over them for 3 decades. Linda didn't get into her dream university. The top student in our class had to take a semester off for mental health issues. 2 other classmates had developed depression, just like me. Just as Linda had said, a piece of everyone's soul was still stuck in the summer they were 16. So when Chris invited them, most of our classmates were eager to participate. But still, no one could beat the game. I didn't have to work at the mental hospital, so I had plenty of time to watch their gameplay videos over and over, trying to find a way to win. After the 200th viewing, I noticed a small bug. Although our classmates and teachers didn't beat the game, they had unintentionally left a sliver of their real-world consciousness behind in the NPCs. For example, on the day I lent Laura the pad, Mr. Yang, who shouldn't have been in the classroom, suddenly appeared. This was because the real Mr. Yang regretted not guiding Chris from the very beginning. When I posted my story online, I was certain of how Linda would reply. That was because in other classmates' gameplay videos, every time Chris posted about me, she was the first to reply and publicly support me. She had always regretted not speaking up for me when the post first came out. The janitor who splashed water on Chris. She regretted watching Chris get parents to complain about me without doing anything. So, as an NPC, her splintered consciousness briefly helped me when Chris was bullying me. The person who sent me the video, Hannah who argued with the boys, Mark and Leo waiting on the rooftop, they all showed traces of these anomalies. Perhaps because these anomalies were so brief, sometimes lasting only a few seconds, the system never detected them. I realized I wasn't fighting alone. I carefully noted the times all these NPC anomalies occurred. At those specific moments, they would become my allies. Later, the redemption game Class 10-3 was officially released to the public. The huge prize money attracted countless players. Players discovered all sorts of different endings, and the comments constantly changed their guidance strategies, but still no one could achieve true redemption. I constructed an identical redemption game in my mind and tried to beat it over and over. On my 79th try, I figured out how to solve the dropout crisis. On my 267th try, I discovered Laura and Chris's secret. On my 356th try, I uncovered the truth about Chris's suffocating family. On my 360th try, I beat the game for the first time. But I didn't rush to enter the real game. I practiced in my own consciousness 1,025 times, accumulating 1,000 successful clears, before I finally picked up the phone and called Chris. By then, because no player had beaten Class 10-3 for years, Chris had stopped developing new redemption games. Instead, he used the money he earned from the game to manufacture sanitary pads. He carried a pink tag that said you can always borrow a pad from me and regularly donated free pads to schools and impoverished areas. Oh, and the ads for his brand of pads used red liquid, which was pretty revolutionary. He was surprised when I told him I wanted to enter the game. Susan, you're 60 years old. I thought you would never enter this game. Please. I play it every day. I've already beaten it 1,000 times. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then Chris said softly, okay. He definitely thought I was crazy. But I was. After entering the game, the system informed me that my original memories would be erased. Before I could react, it had already wiped the memories of my Laura personality. Because Laura was an unselectable character, in the game, she was the deceased. If I had entered with my Laura personality, it would have caused a major bug. So the system automatically kept the 60-year-old Susan. I breezed through the level. I met every one of Chris's provocations and Laura's betrayals head-on. Listen, I'm an old lady who's lived at 600 North Chapel Street for decades. I've dealt with every kind of weirdo imaginable. I can handle people throwing shoes at me, picking my nose for me, or chasing me down the street calling me daddy. Dealing with two dramatic high schoolers was nothing. My only worry was that the comments would see through my act. So I had to play dumb sometimes and go along with the plot they expected. But they seemed to have figured out I was crazy anyway, calling me insane so much it made me nervous. Thankfully, they didn't report me. So just like every other time I won, I found the cracks in the teenage lives of myself, Chris, and Laura. There is a crack in everything, that's how the light gets in. After playing the redemption game over 1,000 times, I think I finally understood its true meaning. True redemption isn't about victory after a battle. It's about finding the strength to live and peace of mind in the midst of suffering. To change the ending, you have to first change the 16-year-old versions of ourselves. Otherwise, nothing will change. I never would have guessed that me, a crazy lady with a split personality, would be the chosen one to beat the game. In this whole world, no one else could have done it. Because no one else could split off a Laura personality. After beating the redemption game class 10-3, the past changed. I was no longer a resident of a mental hospital. I got into Harvard. Laura and Chris both went to MIT. They were each other's first love, but they didn't end up together. Susan, Chris has shades of his father in his personality. He's way too chauvinistic. I just don't think we're a good fit. I didn't try to comfort Laura when she and Chris broke up. After all, she may have lost a boyfriend, but she became a mega-rich woman. Chris cut ties with his bankrupt father. When he was preparing to develop the redemption game for his sister, I convinced Laura to invest with me. We now get at least 9 figures in dividends every year. And the newest redemption game is about to be released. It's a private game commissioned by a high school girl who's spending $10 billion to save her pet. 10 billion. People are really doing well for themselves. But hey, we deserve it. After saying goodbye to the summer we were 16, our beautiful lives were just beginning. So whether you're 16 or 60, we must again and again, and again, endlessly, 1,000, a million times, without hesitation, save ourselves from the fire and flood of this world. The end.